Tis a Tuesday morning here on Birds 365. A little bit of a trepidation Tuesday, as a matter of fact. You got your Mac and Mac guys back together again. Jody McDonald, along with my partner John McMullen, who made his way back from the Windy City. As you were coming back yesterday, Johnny Mac, did you know you were coming back to questions about the Eagles season because of the shoulder issues that Jalen Hurts is having?
I did not. I knew he was banged up. He seemed okay after the game. But I knew he was banged up. I didn't know it was going to be a sprained shoulder that was going to cost him a game or two. So, yeah, it's not the best case scenario, but it's not the worst case scenario either. So, they managed to persevere in a trap game, whatever you want to call it. If you don't want a human nature game, as I've tried to coin it. I thought they showed a lot of disrespect for the Bears. Maybe the trap game was for the coaches. I think they showed a lot of disrespect for the Bears with that game plan in that weather. I really do. I think they took them for granted. But they managed to get it done, which to me is the most impressive part of this team, because even when they have off days, they still find ways to win. And we see it all over the league. Nobody else does that. Dallas, and they give up a 17-point lead to Jacksonville, lose the football game. And
Right.
essentially, Eagles' magic number is 1 for everything, the NFC East, the number 1 seed. So all of that is positive. And the good thing is they don't need Jalen Hurts for this game. It's a little bit disappointing because it's Christmas Eve. It would have been such a big game. You finally would have gotten to see Dak Prescott and Jalen Hurts on the field together. If you're going to see it, even though the Eagles' Nick Sirianni was just on WIP, your other employer, Jody, and confirmed the sprained shoulder. So everybody calmed down about that nonsense that was going around about broken collarbones and all that. It's a sprained shoulder. It's not long-term. And, I get the feeling if the game was needed, he'd probably try to play through it. So I think it's kind of a good thing that it's not needed. But it's a little disappointing we're not going to see full strength versus full strength, because that was the Cowboys, not the Cowboys themselves, but the fans complained, oh, it's Cooper Rush and whatever it was, week 6. So now it's going to be Gardner Minshew.
Right. And the Eagles fans will say the same thing that the
Yeah,
Cowboys fans
exactly.
said. Oh, so what? You beat Gardner Minshew.
Exactly.
So if there is to be a showdown between Dak Prescott and Jalen Hurts, it's going to have to come in the postseason. Those cataclysmic warriors, they're going to separate your program. There's no way he plays the end of the game if he's got a broken clavicle.
So
Not only did he play, he made big plays.
I don't even know where that started, to be honest. But don't trust people who aren't around the team. That's all I'll say with that. If somebody around the team says it, all right, you give it a little more credence. But if you see somebody you never heard of and throwing stuff out there, don't, come on.
I agree with you, but I don't always trust the Eagles either. While you're right, you must check your source and weigh for yourself how much that person really has the ability to get quote unquote inside information. A lot of that goes on, and shame on anybody who goes down that road. But I don't always trust the Eagles either, because they are that kind of a guarded organization.
No, either do I. In fact, a perfect example, Nick said this morning also, we're not going to rule them out for Dallas, or essentially said we're not going to rule them out. Well, you can rule them out for Dallas.
Yes.
I mean, so I know what you're saying, Jody, but there's a common sense demarcation line there. Well, I mean, it does the Eagles no good to say, oh, he's going to be back for the playoffs if he's not going to be back for the playoffs. I mean, you're not losing a competitive advantage a month away. Everybody's going to realize what's going on for this particular week, and about saying, he's not going to rule them out. Yeah, that's sort of Nick's way of handling these things. And
right.
it would be malpractice if the Eagles put him on the field against the Cowboys on Saturday. To be honest, they don't need the game. They don't need it. They want it. They're going to try to win. By no stretch of the imagination are they saying we're not going to try to win this game with Gardner Minshew. They have a tremendous supporting cast. I think the deepest roster in football. They could still win this football game. And by the way, that'll create another narrative for the system quarterback people if Gardner Minshew beats the Cowboys. But they're going to try to win the game, but they also know they don't need the game.
Interesting dichotomy in that if you're Chris Sims, you actually have to be rooting for Gardner Minshew, right? I don't think Chris Sims is an Eagle fan. I think that he's got some DNA issues with Philadelphia, with his father being Phil, and as many great games between Eagles and the Giants. That's just my observation of listening to Chris Sims, the football insider, over the last several years. I don't think he ever gives Philadelphia enough credit. I don't know why, but you know what he said about Jalen Hurts. He didn't have him in his top 40 quarterbacks before last year started, and just last week he said, yeah, the Eagles would be just fine with Gardner Minshew. Which, Chris, I don't know if you pay attention to the betting markets at all. The Eagles went from a 1-point underdog to a 6-point underdog when it became obvious that Jalen Hurts was not playing this week. So,
yeah, by the way, Vegas gets the information more than anybody. That's a problem for the NFL because that number went from 1 to 5, I think, and you're saying it's 6 now.
Oh, it's 6.
And
6.5.
When I saw it. When I saw it, it was 5, and I'm like, "What's going on here? What happened?" Well, they knew what happened before I knew what happened, and that's, the NFL's embraced gambling now. They're trying to, make money off it, and that's really the only reason why they didn't embrace it before, because they didn't see a path to make money off it. That was the only reason, Jody. But now that they have a path to make money off it, they're fine with it. But still, okay, who's getting that information? How are they getting that information? The NFL might want to look into that because that could be an issue at some point.
Right. And they probably spend a lot of money to be able to get that information as early as humanly possible so they can adjust their lines accordingly.
If you're paying people to get it, there's some issues there.
That's exactly right. So to take a stance of Gardner Minshew equals Jalen Hurts equals Gardner Minshew. Vegas doesn't think so, and they got millions, if not billions of dollars on the line, Chris Sims. So, I do want to get back to something you just touched on earlier, and that's the play calling for the game. When I'm watching on Sundays, you're there, you're at the game, you're in the press box. I'm here watching it on TV and also attached to my social media and many other social medias. The second guessing was going on well before that game ever ended with the Eagles play calling in that game. For whatever reason, Miles Sanders didn't get a handoff until well into the second quarter, that they had thrown the ball as much as they had, and Jalen had run it as much as he had. You said you thought they were taking the Chicago Bears for granted and just thought, we can come out and do whatever the hell we want. We can throw it all over the lot. We can get up by 25, 28 points without breaking much of a sweat. That didn't happen. And, oh, by the way, eventually in the game, not till late in the third quarter, but Jalen Hurts goes down with the shoulder injury that he has, and he had a beating type of a day. And, oh, by the way, we found out after the game, and the Eagles should have known this while the game was ongoing, Jalen Hurts said he couldn't feel the football, that his hands were numb, that he was not used to playing in that kind of cold. Well, if that's the case, and he should have told his coaches about it, he's got to come over, tell Sirianni, tell his quarterback coach, tell Steichen if he's on the sideline, listen, I'm not feeling it today as well as I usually do. You adjust your game plan accordingly. It seemed like they threw it even more as the game unfolded. The first possession thereon after, it was not a good game as far, and it certainly the injury to Jalen's shoulder is part of it. But even if he comes out of that game 100% healthy, I'm still sitting here going, what exactly were they trying to accomplish with the play calling on Sunday?
I had the same thought as you, and I got to flesh that out a little bit more because Nick talked before Jalen at the game, as he typically does after the game. Nick goes before Jalen. So we didn't know about the numb hands until Jalen came out.
Right.
So we didn't get a chance to, and Nick will talk to us later today, but so he'll get questions about that. Maybe we can flesh that out a little bit more. But yeah, I had the same thought as you. The guy's got numb hands, but in pregame he was trying to glove. He was trying the Teddy Bridgewater look. He was trying to figure out because it was bad. It was cold. I mean, it was Chicago cold. So people who've been in Chicago know there's a difference. And Jalen got that question. Well, it gets cold in Philadelphia in January because most likely the postseason's coming through Lincoln Financial Field.
Yep.
And he said, it ain't Chicago. And he's right. It ain't Chicago. So when that wind is coming off Lake Michigan and the wind chill was under 10, I think it reached 3 at one point. It is a tough place to play on days like that. And yeah, they came out throwing the ball, and that's what I said. It showed tremendous disrespect. And by the way, talent-wise, like Chicago, I think people look, they didn't stop the run, blah, blah, blah. They got a bad team. I mean, they don't have a lot of talent. One of the few places they have talent is cornerback. Now, Kyler Gordon's a very young player. He's not played well. He's a rookie, but you can see his talent. Jalen Johnson's just flat out good. A.J. Brown can't talk enough about him. Talked about him during the week, after the game. He's got tremendous respect for him as a young corner in this league. And their front seven, is not good. We talked about the Robert Quinn trade. We've been talking about it for a while. Robert Quinn saw double teams because they had nobody else. They had nobody else. So they're like, well, let's double team Robert Quinn. And we saw Robert when he got here before he got injured. Not exactly the same Robert Quinn we all remember. So, yeah, I didn't get it. I didn't get the game plan. Now, I will say now here's where I deter from most people. The idea the Eagles should trash their typical offense and go to a traditional running game because Miles Sanders has 1,000 whatever yards. I think that's disrespectful. I mean, they have to run their offense. They have to do what they do well, and it's RPO based, and a lot of it involves Jalen Hurts. So when people point out that number, Jody, 17 runs, it's too many runs. It's too many runs. Well, first of all, and I haven't charted the game. I asked Damo before I came on. I was hoping he did, but he's not through it either. So I don't know how many design runs there were, but I do know there were 2 in victory formation, right? So cut it to 15. There were at least 2 quarterback sneaks.
Both of them for touchdowns.
So cut it to 13. So how many of those were RPOs? Nick talked about that after the game. That's where you're reading the player. You're reading the end. So if he does one thing, you give it to Miles. If he does another thing, Jalen's got to keep it. So conservatively, let's say half of them were RPOs, even less than half, because we're talking about 13. So 6 design runs, maybe?
Right. But here's where you and I may verge and go different. An RPO call is a Jalen run. If he's got the chance to run the football, if it's his call as to whether to run the football or not, that counts for me as a Jalen run. Even if he hands it to Miles Sanders, it's a Jalen run because you're giving him the option to do so. I think in this particular game, Shane Steichen needed to protect Jalen Hurts from himself. You called the Eagle offense an RPO-based offense. Well, that all comes down to percentages. That comes down to how much you are going to lean on it. Every play is not RPO. They don't run no RPO. So it's a percentage of the number of snaps they take every single week.
Running game.
I'm telling you on Sunday, I believe their RPO was overdone, overused, that they shouldn't have even given Jalen a chance to make the decision for himself that he's going to end up keeping the football running it.
Well, that what I'm saying is the running game is RPO based. The Eagles' running game is RPO based. That's what it's built on. That's what generates its success, and a lot of that has to do what they say it all the time, the so-called +1 of Jalen Hurts in the running game. See, where I diverge, where I take a turn from you, that anybody's definition could be the definition. Like, it's not Jalen's decision specifically. He's supposed to read the end, and whatever the end does, that's what he does. He reacts to that. So it's not like he can go off base and say, oh, you know what? I'm going to play hero football, and I'm supposed to give it to Miles Sanders, but I'm going to keep it and play hero football. I haven't seen evidence that he's done that. That's sort of like a Carson Wentz thing. He reads what he reads, and that turns out to be the play. But that, to me, is not the issue. People can have whatever definition they want of an RPO and what that means to the running game. Nick will say, and it could be his own read, it might not even be an RPO. And Nick will say, when he talks about the passing game, you have a pass option. It can go into the passing game. The Eagles call it a run-pass-run option because they can give it to Miles, they can pass it, or Jalen can keep it. So they have the extra layer to it as well. But my issue is with people that say you should turn into Earl Campbell in week 15? What are we? All right, we're going to scrap everything that's made us a 13-1 team, and we're going to play football with Earl Campbell and turn, that's what I'm saying, Jody. You don't change to protect the quarterback. You don't change to that's not how you play this game. Jason Kelce will say it all the time. You can't play this game afraid. You can't play this. The minute you do is when you're going to get hurt. So you have to play your offense. So I don't have a problem with that. I don't have a problem with that part of it from the Eagles' perspective. The game planning I have a problem with is the heavy pass load. They didn't take into account the weather. There was too much hubris that they could do whatever they want because they are a 13-1 team playing maybe the worst team in the NFC. And I thought they thought we can do whatever we want and we'll get the 3-touchdown lead and then we'll bleed the clock. I think that was the plan. And when they showed up and the wind chill is 3 degrees and the wind is whipping off Lake Michigan, I mean, come on. And the quarterback's hands are numb. Did he not tell the coaching staff? Again, we'll ask Nick Sirianni that today, but that is what I had a problem with.
Yeah, you and I do see it a little differently. And you used the right word to take your position, change their offense. I'm not suggesting they change their offense as you just described it, get into the eye and just hand it to the running back coming. The quarterback turns his back on the line and hands the ball off to the running back. No, that is uncalled for and foolish. But you should be able to adjust your offense. And if adjusting your offense serves to protect a quarterback that you desperately need, who is now playing with an injured shoulder, I think that's incumbent on them to do. They can't just say, well, we got the 13-1 doing it this way. And if Jalen got hurt, well, tough, you know what? We're just going to continue to do it this way because we won 13 of our 14 games. Well, now you're going to do so with Gardner Minshew.
I think they were going to play the way they're playing. And Nick kind of alluded to that this morning as well. And we got to get to our buddy Les Bowen. But he kind of alluded, they're going to play till they get the number 1 seed. They're going to play Eagles football till they get the number 1 seed. Then they're going to rest people. That seems to be the plan. I personally don't have that much of a problem with that plan.
All right, so you don't change anything to adjust to Jalen Hurts' injured shoulder at any point this year.
Oh, and this was before the injured shoulder, Jody. Obviously,
but now we have the injured shoulder in play, and the question's got to be asked: do you change anything? Do you adjust anything?
Yeah, I'm not playing him this week. I mean, he would be playing.
You're right. That's the first adjustment. But when he comes back, are you not making adjustments to protect Jalen
No,
Hurts?
no.
That he doesn't re-injure his shoulder.
When he comes back, he's got a sprained shoulder. When he comes back, because in theory, you might not see Jalen Hurts until the playoffs. It'll be a month. He'll be 100%. If they don't need week 18, he's not playing. He'll be 100% by the time to play. Now you got to worry about rust and things like that. But no, not at all. I mean, yeah, if they needed this game and he had to play, then you got to adjust things to account for the injury. Dak Prescott went through this a couple years ago when he came here. You know, he had that streak. Now people forget he had that streak where he's had a lot of injuries, but he had played 16 games. He had played, I think, 4 consecutive years, never missed a game. And then he got hurt and he had to play with a labrum injury. He was a disaster, but they put him out there. They would have to adjust if Jalen was playing this week, but he's not playing this week, no matter what they say.
Right. And then comes a bigger, and I understand you're in a Super Bowl push. You're trying to get a championship. We also need at some point to talk about the big picture of Jalen Hurts as the quarterback of the Eagles in 23, 24, 25 in the contract. And is he going to be a player who you're going to have to at least keep in mind the possibility of injuries? There's a lot of different layers to this. All right, we'll come back. Maga Mac here with you on Birds 365. We do have him waiting in the green room, and it looks like he's got green on. Our good buddy Les Bowen's going to jump in with us here on Birds 365.